Okay, I wanted you all to see a video within a video, and I was thinking was really, really alarming, especially with what's going on right now. And just take a look and listen to what's going on in Portland, Oregon. And I believe is going to the point to where we have gone to no return, and people are being forcefully yanked off the streets and thrown into minivans, and this is really, really alarming. So take a look at this and listen.
Political theater. It's not about public safety, and it's certainly not about problem solving. This is a total and complete distraction from the Trump's administration failure to lead a national COVID-19 response.
Oregon Governor Kate Brown demanding the federal government remove its militarized anonymous federal agents from the streets of Portland. Administration officials say the feds were deployed after 49 days of what they say has been violence and vandalism nonstop during Black Lives Matter protests. Video captured the camouflaged forces without any markings who refused to identify themselves, driving unmarked vehicles, tear-gassing protesters, loading them into unmarked vans. One protester armed with only a boombox was shot in the head last weekend with a non-lethal weapon. His mother told the Oregonian, quote, his face and skull were fractured and that he finished facial reconstructive surgery early Sunday morning. Quote, he still has a tube in his skull to drain the blood. We welcome to this broadcast a man in the middle, the Democratic mayor of Portland, Oregon, Ted Wheeler. Mr. Mayor, where did these guys come from? Who are they, and under what authority are they in your city?
So these are federal troops. They've been sent here by Donald Trump. They are sent here amidst increasing rhetoric from the Trump administration. You'll recall last week, President Trump said he would, quote, dominate protesters. He's making good on that threat by sending his troops to cities like Portland, Oregon. And we've made it very clear. They're not needed here. They're not wanted here. And we want them to leave. They're escalating what's an already tense situation. And frankly, they're making things much worse.
We asked for the attention of our...
Okay, so I just wanted you all to see that, how bad it's getting in terms of where we're at. We're in the midst of a war just to exercise your right to protest. And so it has gone to that extreme. Also, I wanted you to see this, that I thought it was alarming. It says, I'm scared. So in Detroit, a city hit hard by COVID-19 has a reopening. And it was during a summer school reopening. And so as school leaders agonize over whether and how to reopen, fights like the one in Detroit this week could soon play out across the country. And so our children are not getting pays. And so what they've done here basically is in the article. So it says, this is by an Erwin Inhorn. The fury surrounding the start of summer school in Detroit this week offers a preview of an emotional battle that could hit many more communities this fall. And so the city's main public school district made the unusual decision to open classrooms for in-person summer learning starting Monday in hopes of helping children catch up 4 months after the coronavirus has forced schools to close. So while the district says it took safety precautions to prevent the spread of the virus and stressed that no student nor teacher were forced to participate in the face-to-face instruction, the first 2 days of the classes were met with protests. So activists blocked the school buses leaving the bus depot, and the civil rights lawyer who used the word genocide to describe the effect of the district's decision because the student population is 96% Black or Latino says that she plans to seek an injunction to the close of the schools. And so the head of the city teachers union called in-person summer school a mind-boggling decision. So some parents expressed grave reservations about whether their children would be safe. So I'm scared, said Kim Martin, 50 years of age, who was picking up her son, Alan, an 8th grader from summer school classes at Brenda Scott Academy on Detroit East Side Monday. I don't want my son to get sick. He is asthmatic. So across the country, many districts are embroiled in what has become a highly publicized or politicized debate about school reopenings, with the President Donald Trump threatening to withhold funding with the schools if they don't offer in-person instruction. So on Monday, 2 of the nation's largest districts, Los Angeles and San Diego, said that they will not offer in-person instruction when they reopen for the new school year because of the rising COVID-19 cases numbers in California. So Detroit, where roughly 500 students attend classes at 23 schools Monday, isn't the only school to hold in-person summer school. Some districts, though, including Connecticut and Iowa, have already had to shut down because of the confirmed or suspected cases of the virus. So evidence suggests that the children are not as susceptible to the virus as adults, but some children have died, including a 5-year-old girl in Detroit. Teachers have also raised concerns about the dangers they are facing in returning to work. So the Detroit School Superintendent Nicole Vitti said that the city's children, the vast majority of whom are classified economically disadvantaged by the state, have test scores showing that they're far behind their peers academically, can't afford to miss much more school. So our children need us, he said, and people have to get off the sideline and get on the field and figure out what the new normal looks like with the school under COVID-19. And so this is a video that's associated. So he rejected the critics who say that the districts should have stuck with the online instruction. So both because many children in Detroit do not have computers, and major philanthropic effort announced April to distribute tablets or computers to every Detroit student has so far only reached high school students. And because students' needs can be fully met online, a lot of children will not be able to stay focused and engaged in receiving the support that they academically need and socially, emotionally need, he said. So COVID-19 has pummeled Detroit. 1,461 people have died from the virus since March. So the school district lost 10 employees, Vitti said. So he believes that nearly every student and staff member was affected by the virus. While some say that another reason to keep the classrooms closed, Vitti argues that it's reason to open them for students whose parents feel comfortable with the idea. And so we feel that we feel hurt that those children and their families have said, he said. So the district is taking safety measures. And so from what I heard from the video, they said they weren't taking safety measures. So you see how the classroom is set up. But these are older students. And so let me just go and play this video so you can see. It is really alarming. This is really hitting a lot of places.
Ellos están aquí para recoger la misma medicina. Saben que el costo está fuera de control. Pero uno de los dos está retomando el control con GoodRx. Él está pagando mucho más. Ella, solo esto. Pague menos por sus medicinas. Descargue gratis la aplicación hoy.
Protesters in Detroit blocking buses from taking kids to summer school. They say the city's classrooms are not safe for students or teachers, with coronavirus cases in Michigan on the rise. NBC News correspondent Heidi Prisbilla is in Detroit. And Heidi, what are teachers and parents there telling you?
Hi, Allison. I'm outside Priest Elementary School on Detroit's west side. This is one of 23 schools that are now in session for summer school. That is unusual. It is unusual for Michigan, and it's unusual for all around the country. You talk to parents and educators, on the one hand, who are very concerned about the safety protocols that they view here as essentially experimental on their children, knowing that a lot of these buildings have poor ventilation systems, poor infrastructure. On the other hand, you have administrators and other parents who say that they really have no option because of those infrastructure shortfalls. because of the fact that a lot of these students are impoverished, Allison, and when they went out in March, due to COVID, they stayed up. They didn't have Chromebooks. They didn't have Wi-Fi to do their virtual learning, and yet they're being held to the same standards as other children who did have those resources. Take a listen to one of the protesters out there today about what she had to say about the concerns about children in these schools.
We know from bus drivers, teachers, parents, that the schools are not safe. They are not following the guidelines that they even set for themselves. But even if they were, it would not be safe to send kids back into these schools. The CDC has said that the fastest way to spread the virus is reopening the schools, and they're only opening them in Detroit, in this whole area, just Detroit. And that's because Detroit is being used, Detroit kids are being used as guinea pigs for reopening the economy.
So, Allison, a lot of concerns there from parents who do feel like their children are being used as one big experiment. There's been some harsh words used about this by protesters and by parents who say that there has got to be some way, if we can figure out how to funnel money out to companies, out to millionaires and billionaires who've been getting PPP loans, that we can't figure out some kind of way to virtually treat our poorest and neediest kids.
Heidi, what is the school district doing to protect students and teachers there?
I had a long talk yesterday with the president of the school board who said, look, we are taking every precaution. We have a 60-page plan which outlines all of these safety protocols, which include testing for all teachers. They can't come back until they are all tested, social distancing, masks, disinfected. But at the same time, I talk to concerned parents who say, the children aren't being tested. How do they know if they have an outbreak, if an asymptomatic child comes in, which we know is a common thing, and creates an outbreak, especially considering all of the testing delays that we are seeing with folks here not being able to get their tests back for 5 to 7 days. Some people say that's a big problem. The school board told me it's not, but at the same time, even on the first day, yesterday, that they were trying to get this plan off the ground, they had protests outside the bus terminals trying to block these children from getting on the buses and going to school. You had 2 bus drivers at least who quit because they said there were not adequate safety protocols, including hand sanitizer. And I also spoke with a teacher who said that because one of the teacher's tests failed to come back, they had to double up classrooms. Now, because so many of the students were blocked, that did not pose a problem of overcrowding on that particular day, Allison.
Heidi, how about the upcoming school year? I mean, this is just summer school. They've got the full school year ahead, and that isn't all that far off.
It is not. And the administrators here in Detroit who I talked to said that they are very concerned about what that will look like in the fall, that no decisions have been made, that this is very different from what will happen in the fall when you have 53,000 students in this school system here coming back to these overcrowded schools that have poor infrastructure. That what they're doing now is something that they can do in the interim. They can do social distancing. They can have these safety protocols now. That doesn't mean that they can do it in the fall. So they're very much waiting on the governor to come up with a plan. The governor said you got to have 3 options for all schools. Detroit City Public Schools especially could be at risk given the overcrowding and also the poverty here. Now, some of these students have just now getting their Chromebooks, but think about it. A number of them don't have Wi-Fi, or they don't have the resources to have the parents at home helping them. Their parents are on the front lines of COVID. They're service providers. They're nurses. We already had a young child here. It was a high-profile case, die of COVID, a 5-year-old. So while the argument is that children largely are being spared, children are dying too. And we know that buildings like restaurants with poor ventilation are one of the main ways that COVID is spread. Even if it doesn't hurt these children, they're at risk of bringing it home to their family members who may have comorbidities and other healthcare issues, Allison.
So many serious concerns there, even though, as you said, it looks like children are at lower risk. Children are still dying from the coronavirus in our country. Heidi, thank you so much.
Trying to nourish and wake up your eyes? Leave it to Tula. Our cooling and brightening eye balm is formulated with probiotics and superfoods, like blueberries and watermelon. So feed your skin the good stuff. 20% off at Tula.com with code TV20.
Just when you thought the year couldn't throw anything else at the world, it has. Locusts. A lot of them. Just half a square mile of swarm has up to 80 million locusts packed in it. And while the locusts may not be eating their way through the U.S., they are wreaking havoc from Africa to Asia to the Middle East. It's a huge problem for food supply in countries that are already struggling to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. And what's worse, if these record numbers of locusts aren't controlled now, the upcoming rainy season could make it a true disaster, like famine-level disaster in the eastern part of Africa.
Considering that there's 20 million people in the region already in, acute food insecurity, which is one level below famine, you can understand, the danger.
What exactly is a locust? Well, basically it's a kind of grasshopper, common to dry or arid areas, and normally, when they're on their own, they lead pretty boring lives. But when they get together, it's different. In a crowd, everything about them changes. Their color, their behavior, their appetite. They reproduce like crazy, and those crowds grow into swarms, and they're ravenous for crops, any kind of vegetation. They aren't fussy. They destroy nearly anything that's green and leafy. East Africa, Yemen, Iran, Pakistan, India, they're all on high alert. Even South America has them too. The threat is unprecedented, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, of the United Nations, where locusts have their own Twitter account and a division of experts tracking them. The FAO says that ultimately we can blame climate change. Extreme weather events, in this case 2 cyclones, triggered heavy rains over a remote part of the Arabian Peninsula, creating these ideal conditions for desert locusts to breed unabated. Countries juggling the pandemic, drought, and conflict lack the tools to deal with this plague too. In the fields around Gotki, Pakistan, this is how farmers are trying to save their crops, banging pots and pans to scare away the locusts, or at least keep them on the move. Local officials aren't convinced it works, but they realize people don't have much else to try.
They have fear in their mind that this pest may cause a considerable loss to their field crops.
Over a third of Pakistan is effectively one big locust breeding ground, which is a threat to the whole country and its crops. Spraying teams with pesticides were apparently mobilized too late.
You cannot completely eradicate the locust, but you can minimize any pest.
The problem is that locust swarms don't stay put. They travel with the wind and fan out in all directions, across borders, eating their own weight in crops every day. A half-square-mile swarm eats about the same amount of food in a day as 35,000 people. And there are a lot of half-square miles of swarms.
How are locusts stopped?
Really, the only way to try to reduce the population numbers is aerial control. And it's aerial control of chemical pesticides as well as biopesticides for the first time this year. But this requires a lot of logistics, good organization, very good information, from countries that don't often have, the foundation or the infrastructure for this.
Cities are getting them too. Last month, clouds of locusts invaded parts of New Delhi, India's capital. At one point, China was apparently going to send thousands of ducks to Pakistan to just eat the problem, but it never happened. There just aren't many options, and the $300 million the FAO is trying to raise for containment campaigns may not be enough. Now the monsoon rains are looming, bringing the perfect world for locusts to breed, and people may be able to do little more than stare up at the clouds, then watch the fields vanish.
Eviction moratoriums are a temporary measure designed to pause the eviction process. And as soon as the moratoriums expire, which they have in over half of the states, the eviction process picks up again right where it left off or where it was forestalled. The United States is positioned to face the most severe housing crisis we have ever seen in the last century. Right now, we're looking at somewhere between 19 to 28 million renters being displaced from their homes.
My name is Natalie. I live in Brooklyn. I live in Crown Heights. I am a theater administrator, so I work for a nonprofit, and I work from home remote. My other roommate is a college student, and my other roommate is a lighting and projection designer who has completely been out of work since Broadway is closed. So I'm advocating for her to get her job back. Like, I am doing a lot of advocacy work with the service organization that I work with. And so when I came here and my other roommate came here, there had already been a history of misconduct. So there's been precedent for a tenants union, but with every new wave of tenants, it would kind of fizzle out and start back up. When the pandemic started, we did, like, after the initial shock and panic of not knowing what would happen, we were proactive and we reached out to the management company. And we said, hey, can we work with you? Essentially, we asked him, like, in light of recent events, we won't be able to pay our rent. Some of us have to choose between health and rent. Like, what are we, like, can we talk about it? A lot of people can't pay, and it's not because they don't want to pay. They were paying before. It's literally like they don't have jobs. They are in the money that they are having. Like, my roommate's still not on unemployment. Like, she's an independent contractor, and you're asking her to burn through her savings and choose between rent and medicine and rent and food. And I don't see why he should be making money off of us when we are not okay.
Other than being taken to jail, like, I can't think of anything more destabilizing right now in the middle of a pandemic when they're literally telling you to stay home. They're like just taking away their home.
It is never too late to start a rent strike.
Hi, my name is Esteban Hiron. I am a organizer and member of the Crown Heights Tenant Union. So a tenants association or a tenant union is neighbors talking to each other about the things they're experiencing with their landlord. We based it on the concept of the landlord as boss, just like you would in a workplace. And so, you decide what you're going to fight for. For some people, it's for repairs. For some people, it's this idea of being in solidarity with your fellow tenants that are not able to pay their rent, and saying, all right, well, I'm going to withhold my rent and I'm going to put it in a separate bank account until the landlord deals with this and make sure that my neighbors are safe.
If we can't keep people housed stably through this time, we can expect the United States to fall into a second wave public health crisis in the form of widespread eviction and all of the high healthcare expenditures and poor health outcomes that it causes.
My hope is that enough people are affected by this crisis that it causes the government and the housing situation to have to provide relief funding.
The propositions in place, like cancel the rent or rent relief, and the moratoriums that couple them, are designed to really create a pause in the system and to uplift it so that all members of the housing market, from tenants to property owners, are able to weather this storm.
Our government is failing us, and the system from top bottom is rotting. So I think that really kind of was like, oh, it's not just me. I was just furloughed last month. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get my groceries and my medicine. I really hope that more buildings kind of join, and I hope it puts this pressure on the government. I think that we're really at a turning point. I hope that when people see what is possible, the collective power of everyone organizing, that it helps more people across the nation make it so that there's a base way for people to live.
Only Tylenol rapid release gels have laser drilled holes. They release medicine fast.
Sorry about that. I just wanted you to see some of the things that are going on, and it's even worse. It's saying that Texas will not open their schools. They're only going to open it online only. because through November, as the state has passed, this is their number, 300,000 coronavirus cases. And so I'm going to try to fan through some of this. I'm trying to see if I can actually go back to the article. You know, I went to here, civil rights leader that was once active in the 60s has passed. I'm sure people, those of you that don't know, civil rights icon, Representative John Lewis, he died at age 80. And so some people are talking about that, but I'm looking at what I was looking at. I don't know if I can bring it up again, but it was really alarming. It was basically talking about how the coronavirus is really just really spreading like wildfire everywhere. And so these are, I guess, just videos that are coming up from, you know, like various events that have happened throughout the week, throughout the day. But what I found really alarming is that a lot of this isn't being talked about the numbers in a day, how many people are dying. I don't know that the news is able to keep up with the deaths because they're not really showing all of this. I wanted you to at least see those things that are on the table, you know, about the schools, you know, what's happening in Detroit with their kids and how they're the parents and the staff are not really feeling comfortable about the situation. They feel the kids are being used in the poor communities as guinea pigs for what would be like an experiment to see if the kids can go through that school semester without contracting the virus. They're playing Russian roulette with kids' lives. Then you have Texas, where they saw the numbers rise so rapidly, they've closed schools for in-person, but they're just going to go remote online. And then the issue that's happening in Portland, Oregon, how Trump has sent in his federales, his federal people, and they're just grabbing people at random, protesters. They don't even have to have done anything, really, just be out there. And there are federal agents that are reportedly tossing protesters in unmarked vans. Who knows what's going to happen to those people? And so it's a lot of stuff that's going on. And if you see the numbers in LA of the people that are getting coronavirus, oh my God, in Brazil. So let's take a look here at Brazil. It's the numbers are just awful. And I want to forewarn you, it looks basically like a graveyard. So if you're a bit skittish about that, seeing something of that sort, then I'm sorry about that. But this is what it is looking like. And it's not just Brazil either that's experiencing this here in the U.S. And so I just want you to look at some of these slides. I think there's 12 slides here. So you can see what's some of the photos here of what is going on. And so do you see that they look like, from a distance, they look like little depressed in marks? But what those actually are is an aerial view of graves. It's a mass grave site because the coronavirus is basically, get a close-up now of people actually burying people. And so the news is not, the American news is not showing you this. And I want people to be forewarned that we are already there now at an unprecedented time where so many people are dying all around. and they're not really talking about this, and they're trying to make things look like we're going on as normal, and it isn't normal, guys, not by a long shot. So since late May, 3 months after Brazil first reopened or reported the cases of coronavirus, it recorded more than 1,000 daily deaths on average in the gruesome plateau that has yet to tilt downward. So on Thursday evening, the Federal Health Ministry reported that the country had passed 2 million confirmed cases of the virus infection to 76,000 deaths. Okay. And so even as cases wane somewhat in the biggest and the hardest hit Brazilian cities, the virus is peaking in a new location across the largest country of Latin America. And so experts blame denial of the virus' deadly potential by the president Jair Bolsonaro. So correct me if I'm wrong on pronunciation of the name. I'm sorry about that, but they feel as though their president has downplayed the virus, the seriousness of it, and so the lack of national coordination combined with this scattershot responses by the city and the state governments with some reopening earlier. And that's what I was saying, the reopenings, they feel also that people have reopened too soon than the health experts recommended. And so the intern health minister, untrained in the field, is presiding over the pandemic response. So Bolsonaro himself is sick with COVID-19 after repeatedly flouting social distance recommendations and undermining local leaders' restrictions on the activity. So Brazil, roughly 7,000 COVID-19 deaths in each of the last 7 weeks. Is equal to about several airplanes packed with Brazilians crashing every day. So that's how bad the deaths are in Brazil, and it's coming in full force. So former health ministry Luiz Henrique Mandetta told the Associated Press, so people have become callous, Mandetta said, and when you say yesterday there were 1,300 deaths, people say, okay, then it didn't go up. So it was 1,300 people the day before too. And so Brazil's nearly 2 million cases is second only to the U.S. Then the experts believe the number to be an undercount due to the widespread lack of testing. So the model created by the professors from several Brazilian academic institutions based on the number of confirmed deaths estimates Brazil has 10 million infections. So the virus would have been difficult to stop anyways, but the milestones of 2 million cases, which is very underestimated, shows that this could have been different, said Adriano Masuda, a healthcare administration specialist and a professor of the Getulio Vargas Foundation, Sao Paulo University. So there's no national strategy for testing, no measures from the top to the real effort to improve basic care. So we find serious cases before they become too serious, no tracking. And so the story continues. And so I saw that article and I thought it was pretty alarming that it's gotten so far out of control in Detroit, in LA, in Florida as well, and in Brazil. You see a mass grave that they're preparing with many crosses, and they're basically getting everything prepared because they're having so many deaths per day. And so what was I looking at? There was something that I saw, and it was on this site, and it was basically, it was showing where they're not really reporting the seriousness. They have downplayed the virus, and that there's like a lot more numbers of people that are dying and are going to die. And so they said they're not reporting it, and I forgot how they worded it, but this is like a global, national and global emergency. And it's not just about the locusts. You know, that's the start of what could be famine, and the poor are the other countries where they have a lack of resource, but also on top having to deal with the coronavirus. But also they have this downplaying of this virus. They're not really mentioning the seriousness of it, and I don't think people realize what's happening right now. There's a lot that is not being told to us, and we're really not really getting all of what we should be hearing about how bad this thing has gotten. So states debate how to safely start the school year. You see the Georgia governor defends the lawsuit against Atlanta mayor over the city's face mask mandate. And then you see the surging of the coronavirus. So I want you to see this video here. I believe this is the video that I'm talking about. I'm going to play it right now. And I want you to just pay close attention. And I want to forewarn you that this right here is really alarming when this video plays, what you're going to see, what they're going to express, and what's not being told to us. This video basically reveals that there's a lot that isn't being
Across
said.
much of the southern U.S., from east to west, another day of scorching heat and hospitals overwhelmed with COVID patients. At the University of Mississippi Med Center in Jackson.
They may live, they may not. Unfortunately, a lot don't. And when you're on a hamster wheel, and a lot of people die, it's tiring.
COVID is exploding across the state. More than 1,000 new cases each day. Mississippi, one of 18 states in the coronavirus red zone, identified by the White House Coronavirus Task Force in a report sent to states but not made public, obtained by the Center for Public Integrity. The report suggests more than a dozen states should revert to more stringent measures, including limiting social gatherings, closing bars and gyms, and asking residents to wear masks outside the home, including in Georgia, where the governor has said no mandate. With the nation's death toll approaching 140,000, Dr. Anthony Fauci today said the time to act is now.
I think the time has come that we really do need to take a look at what's going on and see if we can intensify the things we do to prevent the resurgences that we're seeing.
In Florida, with nearly 14,000 new cases in one day and a death toll exceeding 4,700, Miami Beach announced an 8 p.m. curfew in the entertainment district. Restaurants and bars must close. Broward County announced an 11 p.m. curfew.
We're in unprecedented times. This is not something that we take lightly.
In Texas, FEMA is sending 14 refrigerated trucks and more body bags. Already, more than 3,700 people have died. In Arizona, where some people have waited 8 hours and longer to get tested.
This is the third time in 2 months I've had a sore throat. I just want to be sure.
A new state federal surge site aims to test 5,000 people per day in low-income areas.
So we've got multi-generational families living under one roof. Grandma, the aunt gets COVID. People don't know, they're scared. They've got young ones. They've got to try to go to work.
The hope? Once identified, COVID-positive patients will self-isolate. Meanwhile, volunteers from a former epicenter, New York, are spreading out across the country to lend a hand. Marcel Sarwari's own father died of COVID. Now she's in Houston.
For me, this has been a personal journey due to the fact that I lost my father in this, and I just want to be able to help other people to be able to be tested.
5 months in, this pandemic is still out of control. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
You can't predict.
Sorry about that. So I'm going to get out of that. It was on a commercial. So I just wanted you to see that you heard in this video how they said that they didn't broadcast this and that they kind of withheld it because of their reasoning. And I just think that's really sad. And so we are not hearing everything because they want people to think that things are normal when they really aren't. What we are seeing, all this death and all of these issues happening, all colliding together, none of this is normal, not at all. And this is like a global health emergency. And we are not only experiencing the COVID, we're in some parts of the world, some people are going to starve to death along with this sickness. And then there's going to also be some other things that are probably going to take place. This is going to change society all over the world because of what's going on, and they're not talking about it. So I thought I would bring this video. I'm going to end this with, you guys do what you can to be safe, but don't trust what the regular mainstream medias are saying. Just try to look at some of the other ones that, if they're media and they're talking about around the world, or their media videos like this that you have to search out for yourself, you might want to look into that instead for answers, because you're not going to get it on regular television media, because they've been told not to say certain things. And we saw why, and I guess it's because they don't want to create panic, which really that's what people should be getting themselves prepared for the worst, because it is here now, and that's why all the hospitals have filled up. And I want to mention this too, when there's an emergency like this, there you have people that will take advantage of the situation, and they try to incite fear in people they feel are vulnerable or weaker than them. And so just be safe wherever you are. And I'm going to let this video go, but this is not looking good at all. And I saw earlier where they said this virus could be with us for a number of years, is what someone was reiterating in their article. Maybe later I will find it, but right now I'm thinking that right now is more important than what we're looking at, we're facing right now. And I feel like they haven't not really told us all the details behind all of these things. And notice how a lot of people, a lot of the corruption on all levels is starting to surface, because people, before this virus came about, people were able to hide, and they were able to do the horrible things that we're now seeing people come out and show who they really are. And so I would say to you this: seek out this type of information. You heard what they said earlier in the video. I don't know if I can even replay it, but you heard what they were saying, that, they had a Center for Integrity, I believe. Why would you withhold information from people like this, is my question. So anyway, I'm going to let this video go. And also be safe, guys, when you're protesting, because they are grabbing people off the street. That is against the law right there. They're grabbing people off the street, and we don't know where they're taking those people and what's going to happen to them. And we already heard in a video, there was a woman said her son was grabbed off the street, and they shot him, and he had several fractures in his face, and he had to go through reconstructive surgery because they're tear gassing people, and they're shooting them with non-lethal bullets, but it's still dangerous because it's enough to break bones. And so this is pretty serious, and so we are at war on all levels here. And so I'm going to let this video go. So like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening. This is Antoinette 70, and be safe out there. A lot is going on, and I would say keep your eyes and your ears open. Be safe. Protect yourself how you know how, and be aware that this thing is really showing a lot of what has been going on that we have not been hearing about. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. Thanks for listening.